Hey there, friends. This is Bill MacDonald, the Common Sense Math Doctor, and today you're going to get to see two math problems. One will be division, when you need a smaller number, when the keywords are different. Now, the problem with this problem is that many teachers tell their students that if they see each in the problem, they need to multiply. And in the same way they did with previous problem that I did for you on this club, just because the word each is in the problem or the question doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be multiplying or dividing. It's a clue, but we have to look at other significant words and key clues that will help us decide which operation to use. So this first problem is going to be, like I mentioned, on division. We're going to use that MOSRED acronym like we did the last time. And the second problem is going to be about perimeter. Perimeter, add up all sides, or perimeter, add up all sides. If the question is asking you for the perimeter, that means all the parts have been given, or at least some clues about all the parts have been given. And all your students have to do is figure out, how do I add up all sides, however many sides that might be. So let's take a look at our two problems that we're going to do today and see if we can help your students who are struggling with division. Now, we can decide, do we do it alphabetically, where we look at the problem first, or the question? Well, for the sake of argument sake, let's go ahead and read the problem this time and see if it helps us. It says, John used 35 feet, key number 35, keyword feet, of leather to make some belts. Some is a number, we don't know how many belts. So what you need to think about is, you only have 35 feet of leather and you're putting the leather into belts. That means we're going to need a smaller number because, first of all, the keywords are different. And I want you to notice on my mathematics chart, it says it right there on the place value chart on the bottom, near the bottom. If the keywords are different, then the operations are either going to be multiplication or division. But here's where your students went wrong. They found each per one in the problem, and it said, mine says problem PM question mark, problem multiplied question mark. That's only the first clue to look at, and your kid didn't bother to look at anything else, because look at the second sentence. He used 5 feet of leather for each belt. So what your kids should have done would say 5 feet, 1 belt, 10 feet, 2 belts, 15 feet, 3 belts, 20 feet, 4 belts, 25 feet, 5 belts, 30 feet, 6 belts, I'm almost there, 35 feet, 7 belts. So that means in order to get 5, 35, and 7 all in the same problem, I only see one solution set that does that, and we do need a smaller number, not a larger number. So when they ask the question, what equation can be used to find the number of belts that he made, I would suggest that you solve it both ways, that you do regular division, take the feet that you have to work with and divide them into fives, which is what I did here for you on notebook paper. 35 feet, 5 feet for each belt. How many belts? The keywords are different. PM, yes, but no, because I need a smaller number, and if I multiply, you end up getting a bigger number. So practicing MOSRED, we showed you inside the binder on page 37, the math binder, says Masra, it stands for multiply something until you get an answer that is equal to or lower than the number inside the dividend, inside the box. And you'll subtract to get a remainder, and you'll be dropping and going back to the top. When you drop, go back to the top, or you'll be done. So let's see what happens when you take the dividend of 35 dividing by the divisor of 5 to see what quotient you get. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. And you keep going to get to the number or higher. That way you don't accidentally have a number that's way too low and your remainder ends up being higher than the divisor. We can't have that. Times 2 is 10, 3 is 15, times 4 is 20, times 5 is 25, times 6 is 30, times 7 is 35. So tell your kids that whatever number's on the top, it goes on the top. The number that goes on the bottom, the product of 7 and 5 goes on the bottom. That's your product. And so then we multiplied, we put our answer, we subtract now. 35 from 35 is 0. That's my remainder. And I will be done because there's no other number to drop. So I can get, based on the question, the number of belts would be 7 if you are making them into 5 feet. How many inches is that? 5 times 12 equals 60 inches because there are 12 inches for every foot. So you can do extra credit like that. I always suggest doing a little bit beyond the problem. And as you notice here, we eliminated H and J right away because the keywords were different. Not the same as plus or minus. Different as multiply or divide. So there was really only 2 answers, but a little over a third of your students got that wrong. Let's take a look at number 3. We'll do 2 today. It says, this time I'll start with the question. We'll alternate. What is the perimeter? Make sure you can see me. Perimeter, add up all sides. So we're going to underline that keyword, and we could write add up all sides there to remind ourselves that we don't want to accidentally do the area, because a lot of kids get shapes confused and the operations that go with them just because they see something. They assume something that's not being asked. The tabletop of Pepe's kitchen table in centimeters. A centimeter is the thickness of this pencil, the thickness of my pinky, and if you look at the operations part of the mathematics chart, I want to show you in the lower right-hand corner of the operations page. It actually kind of gives you some clues there. It says a centimeter is a pinky, a pencil width, a sticker, and a millimeter, which we're going to discuss in a moment, is the thickness of your fingernail or the thickness of a dime. So let's take a look and see what we have to work with in the problem now. Pepe's kitchen table has a square top with a side, singular, length shown. And so if one side is 150 centimeters and it's a square means that all 4 sides are equivalent in length. So we physically have to write 150 centimeters 4 times. So your kids could either do 150 times 4, or they could do 150 plus 150 plus 150 plus 150. And as you can see here, I've done that for you. Perimeter, add up all sides. This one got 60% correct in Texas. This came from question number 1 from the state in the 3rd grade test from 2019 test. Reporting category 3, student expectation 3.7b, and it was readiness. And so the two ways that we can work it out are 150 added up 4 times to equal 600 centimeters, or 150 4 times to add up to 600 centimeters. And because we don't have a bubble, there's not a Scantron to bubble in, we would have to do the grid. And so I suggest you have your kids practice on regular paper, turning the paper sideways so that each little line can have its own place. 6 in the hundreds, 0 in the tens, 0 in the hundreds, and then 600 and 0 tenths, so your kids can practice. An extension and going one step beyond, I went ahead and asked the question for extra credit. If it's kilo, hecto, decameter, deci, centi, millimeter, if it's 600 centimeters, if you move to the right from centimeters to millimeters, then you move the decimal to the right. So 600 centimeters would be the same as 6,000 millimeters. 600 thicknesses of a pencil are the same as 6,000 thicknesses of a dime. That's what I call an extension, to extend beyond the problem. So there you have questions number 2 and 3. I hope that perimeter and then using keywords to realize that you can only multiply or divide whenever you're trying to figure out which solution, which equation can be used. Feel free to share or tag your math teacher friends. With this, we will be doing at least 1 or 2 a day in multi-grades. In consulting, I work with 3rd all the way to 8th grade in math. I prefer not to work with 8th grade too much because they rely on the calculator a lot. And my saying is, if you spend too much time on the calculator now, you'll get caca later, because the kids don't practice doing computations with pen and paper, pencil and paper. They're trying to do everything with a calculator and save time. Now, for those of you that saw the rules, I just want to make sure that you see that again, because I don't want to leave anybody out. The reason that the word rules were there is because on one side of the folder, you'll get, if you join my Elite Math Club, is you'll get a class set of these sent to you by mail. It says to read the question and problem solo, softly or loudly, to underline and understand the keywords in the question, to look for and label, which we did. We decided that the keywords were different, to make a bracket around the numbers and the words, to evaluate the problem so that we can make a plan, and execute versus ugly, eliminate extra information, and eliminate and explain the wrong answers, and finally select the correct answer. Double check by searching for errors. Sometimes doing the problem 2 different ways like we did helps. Scantron, all odds are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 endings with A, B, C, D, and all evens are 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0 endings with F, G, H, J, or like we had on our previous problem, we might have a grid response. And just a reminder that sometimes we need to extend beyond the problem to do a teachable moment of instruction where you can try to add another strategy or skill when there's an opportunity to do so, like we did with changing centimeters to millimeters. God bless you guys, and you have yourself a great evening. Stay out of trouble, everybody. Students, if you are watching, God bless you. Have a nice evening. Be good for your parents.